The warning lights flashed red across the control room of Deep Space Repair Station Beta 7. Tom Mason looked up from his coffee, his weathered face reflecting the pulsing emergency lights. 20 years of running this repair station, and alarms still made his heart jump. "Unknown vessel approaching, sir," reported Bill from his monitoring station. "And it's coming in hot." Tom moved to the main viewport, squinting at the approaching ship. It looked like nothing he'd seen before, all sweeping curves and gleaming metal that seemed to shift colors as it moved. But more importantly, it was trailing a visible wake of plasma from its port side. That was never good. "Life signs?" Tom asked, already reaching for the emergency protocols tablet. "Confirmed. Multiple non-human signatures. Sir, they're broadcasting a distress signal. But it's not in any language we have on record." The ship limped closer, its graceful design marred by what looked like scorch marks along its hull. Even damage, it was beautiful, clearly far more advanced than anything humans had built. Tom made his decision. "Open all channels," he ordered. "Universal greeting protocols." A moment later, a hologram flickered to life in the center of the control room. The alien captain stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent scales and 4 arms. Its eyes narrowed as it took in the human crew. "This is..." The alien's translation device crackled. "Unexpected. We received no warning that this was a primitive facility." Tom had dealt with enough spacers, human and otherwise, to recognize barely hidden disdain when he heard it. He smiled anyway. "Welcome to Deep Space Repair Station Beta 7. I'm Station Chief Tom Mason. Looks like you've got a problem with your plasma containment system." The alien captain's scales rippled in what might have been surprise. "You can diagnose that from visual inspection alone." 20 years running this station," Tom replied. "When you've seen as many burned-out plasma conduits as I have, you learn to spot the signs. We can help." "Your species has barely achieved interstellar travel," the captain said. "Our technology is far beyond." A deep boom echoed through the station as something exploded aboard the alien vessel. The hologram flickered. "Your portside auxiliary power core just went critical," Tom said calmly. "You've got maybe 30 minutes before the cascade failure reaches your main drive. The next nearest repair facility is 4 hours away at your current speed." He paused, letting that sink in. "Still think we're too primitive to help?" The alien captain's scales shifted to a darker shade. "You understand our situation is desperate. Desperate enough to trust humans." Tom couldn't help but smile. "Bill, clear Dock 4. Jack, get your repair team suited up. Tell them to bring the old-school diagnostic kit. Something tells me our fancy new computers won't be much help with this one." The alien ship docked with surprising grace despite its damaged state. As the airlock cycled, Tom waited with his best repair crew. Jack Cooper, his chief mechanic, was already pulling out tools that would have looked at home in a 20th century garage. The alien captain ducked through the airlock, all 4 arms clasped in what Tom guessed was a gesture of worry. "Our own diagnostic systems cannot identify the cascade pattern. Without understanding the failure sequence, repair is impossible." Jack stepped forward, holding up what looked like a simple metal rod. "Sometimes the old ways are best. Captain, would you mind if I took a listen to your power core?" "I'd listen." The captain's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. "Yep. Different kinds of mechanical problems make different sounds. Been doing this since I was fixing combustion engines in my dad's shop." Jack grinned. "Some things don't change, even with fancy alien tech." Tom watched the alien crew exchange glances. Their ship shuddered again, and another warning light joined the display. "Begin your listening," the captain said finally. "We have little choice." As Jack disappeared into the ship with his team, Tom gestured for the alien captain to follow him to the observation room. "While they work, maybe you'd like some coffee. And you can tell me what brought a ship like yours so far from the usual trade routes." The captain hesitated, then fell into step beside him. "You seem unusually confident in your ability to repair technology you've never seen before. Tom's smile widened. Captain, let me tell you something about humans. The more impossible something seems, the better we are at figuring it out. Now, how do you take your coffee? Jack Cooper pressed the metal rod against the alien ship's humming power conduit and closed his eyes. The vibrations traveled up his arm, telling a story that no computer could fully understand. Around him, the alien engineers watched with a mixture of curiosity and doubt, their sophisticated diagnostic tools still flashing error messages. There's your problem, Jack said, opening his eyes. You've got harmonic resonance in the quantum field. It's making tiny tears in your plasma containment. One of the alien engineers, who had introduced himself as first engineer, stepped forward. Impossible. Our quantum harmonics are perfectly calibrated by artificial intelligence. The system is designed to. A sharp whine cut through the air, making the aliens flinch. Jack just nodded. That's the sound of your perfectly calibrated system, trying to compensate for damage it doesn't understand. He moved the rod to another section of the hull. See, your AI is treating each tear like a separate problem. But they're all connected. It's like... He paused, searching for a simple comparison. It's like trying to patch a leaky boat without realizing there's a crack running through the whole bottom. Our systems are capable of detecting any structural failures, first engineer insisted, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Jack pulled out an old paper notebook and pencil, drawing a quick diagram. The aliens leaned in despite themselves, fascinated by the primitive recording method. Look here, Jack said, sketching. Your quantum drive creates a field that's supposed to be perfectly smooth. But something knocked it slightly out of alignment. Probably that debris field you mentioned hitting. Now it's creating tiny vibrations. Each vibration is too small for your sensors to detect, but together, he drew a series of overlapping waves. They add up, create weak spots. Those weak spots let plasma leak through, which damages more systems, which makes the vibrations worse. The first engineer's eyes widened. A cascade failure. But how did you determine this without quantum sensors? Jack tapped his ear. Been fixing machines since I was 10 years old. Every system, no matter how advanced, has its own way of telling you what's wrong. You just have to learn to listen. He pulled a few tools from his belt. Now, we can stabilize this pretty quick, but fixing the root cause will take some creative thinking. Creative thinking? Another engineer asked. Yep, your AI can't solve this, because it's programmed to maintain perfect quantum harmonics. But sometimes, Jack grinned as he started working. Sometimes you need a little imperfection to fix something. We'll introduce a controlled counter-resonance. It won't be textbook perfect, but it'll keep your field stable. The aliens watched in amazement as Jack and his team got to work. They used a mixture of their own tools and the station's equipment, some of which looked impossibly crude next to the alien technology. But crude or not, it was working. The whine of the quantum drive began to steady. There, Jack said after 20 minutes of adjustments. Try your diagnostics now. The first engineer checked his instruments, scales changing color in what seemed to be surprise. The cascade is stopping. The quantum field is stabilizing. But these readings, they're not within normal parameters. Nope, Jack agreed cheerfully. They're better. That slight imperfection we introduced, it's actually making your field more resilient. Next time you hit some debris, it'll flex instead of crack. This defies all standard engineering principles, first engineer said, but his tone was filled with wonder rather than criticism. Sometimes that's exactly what you need. Jack started packing up his tools. Want me to show you how we did it? Fair warning. It involves a lot of listening and gut feelings rather than computer models. The aliens looked at each other, then back at their instruments showing the now stable quantum field. First engineer made a gesture that might have been agreement. We would be honored to learn these primitive methods, he said, managing to make primitive sound almost like a compliment. Jack smiled. First lesson. Stop calling them primitive. Different isn't always worse. Now, who wants to learn how to really hear what a quantum drive is telling you? 3 weeks after the quantum drive repair, Tom Mason stood at his usual spot by the main viewport, coffee cup in hand. But these days, his view was anything but usual. 5 alien ships hovered near Beta 7, waiting their turn for repairs. Another request coming in, sir, Bill said from his station. This one's from the Stellar Ring. Says they heard about our unique repair methods from a trader. Tom took a sip of his coffee, hiding his smile. The Stellar Ring was home to some of the most advanced shipyards in known space. If they were sending ships here, word had spread far indeed. What's the problem with this one? He asked. They say 3 other repair stations couldn't fix it. Something about their gravity generators acting strange. The ship's AI can't make sense of it. Sounds like a job for Jack. Tom tapped his comm unit. Jack, you busy? Jack's voice crackled back. Just finishing up with that light-speed engine. You wouldn't believe how simple the problem was. They'd been letting their computers handle everything for so long, nobody noticed the mechanical linkages were worn down. Well, get ready for another challenge. We've got a gravity drive that's stumping AIs across the galaxy. Now that sounds fun, Jack replied, and Tom could hear the grin in his voice. The new ship arrived an hour later. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the station, its hull decorated with swirling patterns that seemed to move in the starlight. Its captain, a being that looked like a collection of floating crystals, appeared in the control room via hologram. We have heard, the crystal captain chimed, that humans possess repair abilities that defy conventional wisdom. Our ship's gravity systems malfunction in ways our most advanced diagnostics cannot explain. Tom nodded. Tell me about the symptoms. Random gravity fluctuations throughout the ship. Rooms that should have standard gravity suddenly have none, or too much. Our maintenance AI has run millions of simulations. All show the system should work perfectly. But it doesn't, Tom finished. Sounds familiar. Mind if we send over our inspection team? The crystal captain chimed in what might have been amusement. Your reputation suggests we would be foolish to refuse. Jack and his team boarded the alien vessel an hour later. The gravity problems were immediately apparent. They had to magnetic lock their boots just to walk down the corridor safely. But Jack wasn't looking at his diagnostic tools. Instead, he was watching the walls. See that? He said to his team, pointing at a barely visible ripple in the metal. The gravity field is actually warping the hull. Microbends you can only see if you're looking for them. One of the ship's crystal engineers floated nearby. Our sensors detect no hull deformation. Because you're measuring from fixed points, Jack explained. But the whole system is moving. It's like trying to measure waves while you're floating on them. He pulled out his trusty metal rod. Let's listen to what the gravity generators are really doing. For the next hour, Jack and his team moved through the ship, using their simple tools alongside the alien technology. They traced the gravity fluctuations not through computer models, but through the subtle ways they affected the physical structure of the ship. Finally, Jack stepped back, nodding to himself. Found it. You've got 2 gravity generators that are slightly out of sync. Not enough for the computers to notice, but enough to create a resonance pattern that's bouncing through your whole ship. The crystal engineer chimed in confusion. But our systems are quantum locked. They cannot fall out of sync. They can if space itself is bent, Jack said. You passed through a strong gravitational field recently, didn't you? Maybe a close call with a black hole. The crystal engineer's lights flickered in surprise. 3 months ago. But our shields prevented any damage. They prevented any damage your sensors could detect, Jack corrected. But gravity affects everything, even quantum locks. We can fix it, but we'll need to do it the old-fashioned way, manually realigning each generator while listening to how the ship responds. The crystal engineer was quiet for a moment. Then, perhaps, you could teach us these listening methods while you work. Jack grinned. That's becoming a pretty common request around here. Sure thing. First lesson. Sometimes the best diagnostic tool is just paying attention to what your ship is trying to tell you. The repair station's success was bound to attract attention sooner or later. Tom just hadn't expected it to come in the form of a gleaming white ship bearing the symbol of the Galactic Engineering Guild. They're requesting immediate docking clearance, Bill reported. Their credentials. Sir, these are some of the highest-ranking engineers in known space. Tom straightened his uniform. Well, let's not keep them waiting. Clear Dock 1. The guild representatives were tall, blue-skinned humanoids wearing pure white uniforms covered in technical symbols. Their leader, who introduced himself as Head Engineer First Class, got straight to the point. Your repair methods are causing quite a stir, he said, looking down at Tom. Some say you can fix problems our most advanced systems cannot solve. Others say you're just getting lucky, using crude techniques that will eventually cause catastrophic failures. Our customers seem happy, Tom replied calmly. No catastrophic failures so far. Ah yes, your customers. The head engineer's tone dripped with disapproval. Do you know why they come to you? Because you ignore proper procedures. You bypass safety protocols. You introduce imperfections into systems designed for perfection. Jack, who had been quietly watching from the corner, stepped forward. Those imperfections are exactly what make the repairs work. Sometimes a little flexibility is dangerous. The head engineer cut him off, which is why we're here. The guild proposes a test. He gestured, and his assistants brought forward a holographic display showing a sleek spacecraft. This is the Stellar Dart, one of our most advanced scout ships. We have modified it, created several problems using technology far beyond your current understanding. You have 48 hours to identify and fix these problems. Tom and Jack exchanged glances. The trap was obvious. The guild had probably used techniques specifically chosen to be impossible for humans to detect. And if we succeed? Tom asked. Your station receives full guild certification. Your methods, however unorthodox, will be officially recognized. The head engineer's lips curled slightly. If you fail, you must cease all repairs of advanced technology. Stick to your own primitive vessels. Jack picked up a wrench from a nearby toolbox, testing its weight. Mind if I take a look at this ship of yours? By all means. The head engineer stepped aside. Though I doubt your manual tools will be of much use, the problems we've created exist on a quantum level. The Stellar Dart was already being towed into the repair bay. Jack walked around it slowly, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. He tapped the hull in various places, pressed his ear against panels, and even ran his hand along the seams. Interesting, he muttered. Tom, remember that old saying about how if you want to hide something, put it in plain sight? Tom nodded, beginning to smile. You've spotted something already. They're so focused on high-tech sabotage, they didn't think about the basics. Jack pointed to a nearly invisible pattern in the hull. These micro-stress patterns, they tell a story. The quantum problems they created are causing good old-fashioned physical strain. The head engineer frowned. That's impossible. The quantum modifications cannot be detected without quantum sensors. Jack grinned. Maybe not directly, but everything's connected. Change something on the quantum level, it affects the physical world. You just have to know how to read the signs. Tom turned to the guild representatives. We accept your challenge. Jack, get your team together. And bring the old tools, all of them. Even the hammer, Jack asked, eyes twinkling. Especially the hammer. The head engineer looked horrified. You cannot seriously intend to use impact tools on a quantum-engineered vessel. Watch us, Tom said. You wanted to test human repair methods. Well, this is how humans do things. We use everything at our disposal, high-tech, low-tech, and everything in between. As the guild representatives huddled together in worried discussion, Jack was already calling his team. They had 48 hours to prove that sometimes the best way to fix the future was to remember the lessons of the past. 20 hours into the challenge, the repair bay of Beta 7 looked like a cross between a high-tech lab and an old mechanic's workshop. Tools both ancient and modern lay scattered around the stellar dart, while Jack's team worked in shifts, analyzing the ship in ways that made the guild representatives wince. That's the third time they've hit the quantum manifold with sonic waves, the head engineer muttered, watching the monitors. Don't they realize they're just creating more chaos in the system? Tom smiled, sipping his coffee. Are they? Or are they making the problems show themselves? On the floor, Jack straightened up from where he'd been pressing his old metal rod against various parts of the ship. His face was streaked with grease, but his eyes were bright with understanding. Got it, he called out. The whole thing's like a house of cards, and we just needed to find the bottom layer. He waved his team over. They didn't just create random problems. They built them to hide each other. Each quantum modification masks another one. Perfect camouflage. If you're only looking with quantum sensors. The head engineer stepped forward. Impossible. The modifications are designed to be undetectable without advanced technology. Jack grinned. That's your problem right there. You're so focused on a quantum level, you forgot that quantum effects have physical consequences. Watch this. He took out an old rubber mallet, a tool that looked absurdly primitive next to the guild's scanning equipment. The head engineer actually gasped when Jack gave the ship's hull a gentle tap in specific places. The ship's quantum field sensors suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. See those readings? Jack pointed to the guild's own monitors. Your quantum modifications are perfect at hiding from each other, but they all create tiny vibrations. Hit the right spots. He tapped another point, and those vibrations add up. Show us exactly where the problems are. One of Jack's younger team members, Mike, spoke up from where he was analyzing the data. It's like when my kid plays hide and seek. He thinks if he can't see me, I can't see him. These quantum modifications are hiding from each other, but they can't hide their physical effects. The guild engineers huddled around their displays, muttering in disbelief as Jack's team methodically mapped out every hidden modification. But finding the problems was only half the challenge. Okay, people, Jack called out. Time for the fun part. We've got 16 hours to fix what they broke, and we're going to do it our way. Their way, it turned out, involved a combination of the guild's advanced tools and what looked like junkyard equipment. The humans worked in pairs, one using quantum sensors, the other using traditional mechanical tools. They weren't just fixing the problems. They were showing how the two approaches could work together. The quantum field is too perfect, Jack explained to the watching guild members. That's what makes it fragile. We're introducing controlled imperfections, like installing shock absorbers. The system needs to be able to bend a little, or it'll break. Hour by hour, they worked their way through the ship's systems. Where the guild had created perfect but brittle modifications, the humans added flexibility. Where quantum systems had been set to hide problems, they were adjusted to reveal and self-correct them. The head engineer watched in growing amazement. You're not just undoing our modifications, you're improving the original systems. That's because we understand something you forgot, Tom said quietly. Perfect isn't always better. Sometimes you need a little chaos to make something truly stable. With 6 hours left on the clock, Jack closed his toolbox and stepped back. Try your diagnostics now. The guild engineers ran their tests, then ran them again. And a third time. The ship wasn't just fixed, it was running better than its original specifications. 3 months after the guild challenge, Deep Space Repair Station Beta 7 looked very different. The station had grown, with new docking arms stretching out into space like metal flowers. But the biggest changes were inside. Tom walked through what used to be Cargo Bay 3, now converted into a teaching space. Jack stood at the front, surrounded by a dozen alien engineers. Some floated, some stood, and one seemed to be a cloud of shifting colors. but all were focused intently on the old engine part in Jack's hands. "Now this is from a simple combustion engine," Jack was saying, "but the principle is the same no matter how advanced your technology gets. Every machine has a rhythm. You just need to learn how to feel it." A crystalline being raised what might have been a hand. "But our ships operate on quantum principles. Surely primitive mechanical understanding can it?" "Try it," Jack interrupted kindly, holding out the part. "Close your sensors. Just touch it. Feel the way the metal has worn over time. That wear pattern tells you everything about how this engine lived and died." Tom smiled, moving past the classroom to the new research wing. Here, human engineers worked side by side with alien scientists, combining their different approaches to create something new. Advanced holographic displays showed ship schematics, while basic mechanical tools lay scattered across workbenches. "The quantum field adjustments are complete," a blue-skinned guild engineer reported, working next to Mike from Jack's team. "But I don't understand why we're intentionally making them asymmetrical." "Because space isn't symmetrical," Mike explained, using a piece of chalk to draw on an old blackboard, a teaching tool that had fascinated their alien visitors. "Perfect symmetry looks good on paper, but it can't adapt to real conditions. Watch what happens when I introduce a gravitational wave." The station had become more than a repair shop. It was a place where different species and technologies met, where the ultra-advanced learned from the seemingly primitive, and where everyone discovered new ways of solving problems. In the main control room, Bill was teaching a group of alien operators how to read visual cues from approaching ships. "Forget your quantum scanners for a minute," he was saying. "Just look at how it's moving. See that slight wobble? That tells you more about their propulsion problems than any diagnostic." The station's mess hall had expanded too, now offering foods from a dozen different worlds. Tom grabbed his usual coffee and sat down with a group of engineers taking a break from their latest project. "I still cannot believe your species reached space using chemical rockets," a gaseous being said, its translator making the words sound amused. "Yet now you teach us things our quantum computers cannot understand." "That's exactly why we can do it," Tom replied. "We learned everything the hard way. Every step up was a struggle. When you start with perfect technology, you never learn how things can go wrong, or how to fix them when they do," added another alien, this one looking like a living section of tree bark. "My people have begun intentionally introducing small imperfections into our ships, following your methods. They are more resilient now." A soft chime interrupted them. Another ship requesting emergency repairs. Tom checked the details on his tablet and smiled. It was from a species they hadn't encountered before. "Looks like we've got a new challenge," he announced. "Anyone want to come watch Jack figure this one out?" The aliens quickly gathered their things, eager to observe another demonstration of human repair methods. As they headed to the docking bay, Tom reflected on how much had changed. Beta 7 had started as a simple repair station. Now it was becoming a bridge between worlds, proving that sometimes the best way forward was to remember the lessons of the past. 6 months after the station had become a hub of interstellar learning, Tom was enjoying his morning coffee when Bill's voice came over the comm. "Sir, you're going to want to see this. Remember our first alien customer? They're back." Tom walked to the viewport, and there it was, the same elegant ship that had started it all. Its hull still shifted colors in the starlight, but this time there was no trailing plasma, no visible damage. The ship looked perfect. "Open a channel," Tom said, smiling. The familiar hologram of the four-armed captain appeared, scales shimmering just as he remembered. "Station Chief Mason," the captain said, their translator carrying a warmth that hadn't been there during their first meeting. "I trust you are still fixing impossible problems." "When we can find them," Tom replied. "Though I notice your ship isn't about to explode this time. What brings you back to our primitive facility?" The captain's scales rippled in what Tom now recognized as amusement. "A minor power fluctuation. Nothing urgent. There are 3 advanced repair stations between here and our home world that could easily fix it." But you came here instead. I did. May I, Doc? There is something I wish to show you. Tom cleared them for Dock 1, where Jack was already waiting. The veteran mechanic grinned at the sight of their old friend. "Welcome back," Jack called as the captain emerged from their ship. "Come to learn some more primitive repair techniques." "Actually," the captain said, "I came to show you what we learned from the last ones." They gestured to their ship. "Would you care to examine our power system?" Jack pulled out his trusty metal rod, more worn now after months of demonstrating his listening technique to alien engineers. But when he pressed it against the ship's hull, his eyes widened. "Well, I'll be damned," he whispered. "You've modified the whole system. These vibration patterns, they're intentional, aren't they?" The captain's scales shifted to a proud purple. "After our last visit, we realized something. Our pursuit of perfect technology had made us forget the importance of understanding how things work. We had become dependent on computers and AI, losing touch with the machines themselves." They led Tom and Jack through their ship, showing how they'd redesigned systems to be both advanced and accessible. Maintenance panels that could be checked by hand as well as sensors. Backup systems that could be operated manually. Computer interfaces that showed not just data, but helped engineers understand what that data meant. "We've started training our engineers differently," the captain explained. "They still learn the advanced theory, but now they also learn to listen, to feel, to understand their ships as living things rather than just collections of perfect parts." "And the power fluctuation?" Tom asked, suspecting the answer. The captain's scales rippled again. "Is minor, as I said. But I thought it would make a good teaching opportunity. We have a group of young engineers who have never tried your, what did you call it, Jack? The listening technique." Jack laughed. "Well then, let's give them a lesson." "Tom, want to sit in? It's not every day we get to teach the teachers." For the next hour, they worked together, human and alien, high-tech and low-tech, perfect and imperfect, all mixing together in harmony. The young alien engineers marveled at how much they could learn just by pressing a simple metal rod against the hull, while Jack showed them how their advanced sensors could confirm what their hands and ears were telling them. As they finished up, the captain turned to Tom. "You know, when I first limped into your station, I thought our advanced technology made us superior. Now I understand that true superiority isn't about having perfect systems. It's about truly understanding what you have, perfect or not." Tom raised his coffee cup in a toast. "To understanding, then. And to the perfect imperfection of learning from each other." Outside the viewport, more ships were arriving at Beta 7, each bringing new challenges and opportunities to bridge the gap between the old and the new, the simple and the advanced, the perfect and the practical. The station had become more than just a repair stop. It had become proof that sometimes the best way to reach the future was to remember the lessons of the past.